Hello, audience on YouTube. This is W. Hansen, a guy you have never seen on this platform before unless you're one of the 3 viewers on my first video where I introduce myself. So this is my second video, and my first one where I actually talk or review something. The first one was just saying who I am, like a welcome video. So, anyway, I'm a bit late to the party when it comes to reviews, but I did see this when it first came out. The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, the pilot episode. And the first Mandalorian we've gotten in 2 years, unless you count the Book of Boba Fett, which I will get into. So, I just wanted to offer my thoughts on this and add them to the table of internet thoughts that has been constructed in the past couple of days. So, getting on to just first impressions of the episode, I think it is probably, I'm not gonna say worst because that implies that it's bad, but the weakest of the Mandalorian pilot episode so far, because episode 1 was, episode 1 of season 1, and episode 2 of season 2 had the big, it was a side quest, but it was a really cool side quest, like the Great Dragon Battle. So this one was, since the Book of Boba Fett already had kind of the continuation of the season 2 story, or right after that, it feels like a lot has happened in between, and so this isn't a grand return of the Mandalorian as much, because the actual episode called Return of the Mandalorian happened in another guy's show, which I think is, everyone's said this before, I feel like it wasn't the best decision to have Mando and Grogu reunite in Boba Fett's show, especially to people who haven't seen the Book of Boba Fett and are now going into Mandalorian Season 3 and are really confused, which, I'm just going to briefly touch on that because everyone's already said it already. And plus, I feel like there's only been 1 episode so far, but judging by just this episode, Grogu isn't important to the plot of this episode. He's not the main focus of the story anymore, in which case I feel like Lucasfilm, or Jon Favreau, just wanted to bring him back to be cute. He just so he can be, in the addition to the show, because a lot of people, I assume, went to watch The Mandalorian for Baby Yoda. Obviously not all the, diehard Star Wars fans, because we just love it for, the storytelling. But for a lot of people, I think Grogu was the main draw, and so people wanted him back in the show immediately, and just to be there, even if he's not important to the plot as of now. So, yeah, I just feel like they could have had a reunion in this season. But, again, already been touched on. So, I'm going to get into the episode itself. I feel like it sets up a lot of different storylines, which is nice. But it's definitely a setup episode. And so, not much gets, fleshed out yet. I feel like it was a pretty interesting decision to bring back IG-11, or, have him start bringing back IG-11. I feel like, I loved IG-11 in season 1, so I'll be glad to see him alive again. I guess he's whatever. But at the same time, especially after, Cobb Vanth and the Book of Boba Fett had a fake death, and then in the post-credit scene of the finale, he was revealed to just be healing in the bacta tank. I feel like these Star Wars shows, these Mandalorian Boba Fett shows, they need to take more risks and have more consequences, because so far, correct me if I'm, so Cobb Vanth's death wasn't permanent. I didn't want him to, I think they just should have had him not fake out death in the first place. And IG-11, even though it would be cool to see him back, I feel like he should stay gone, because I liked his sacrifice at the end of season 1, and I feel like that would just cheapen that, they can just rebuild him, because they can rebuild anyone now, apparently. And so I found Bo-Katan pretty interesting in this episode. I'm definitely interested to see more of her later in the season. But I was a bit confused at the end of the episode. Like, they were like, okay, if we want to bring back IG-11, we have to get this part. And we have to go find a part to bring back IG-11 to help when Mando goes to Mandalore to atone for his crimes against the Creed, you know? And so I felt like, oh, okay, when they're leaving Navarro, they're going to go find the part. But no, they went to see Bo-Katan instead. So I feel like they're just setting up a plot line, then they shift, set up another plot line, shift, set up another plot line. And it's not really one single storyline. It's like, think of it as like one line, the episode, and then there's like a few dots here and there, and each of those dots is a plot setup. So it was kind of weird structure for the episode, but it was still enjoyable. I was glad to see Greef Karga again. I was glad to see how Navarro was doing. I think that's one of my favorite planets that's currently being explored in Star Wars now. And I'm happy with the way they, like, I guess, putting it bluntly, just wrote Cara Dune out of the story after they fired the actor. I think that was the least problematic way they could do it. And I'm interested in these new kind of like pirate villains that they're introducing. But at the same time, after like all the stuff in the trailer with the New Republic officer saying like something is going on in the galaxy, and by the time it becomes big enough for you to act, it'll be too late. So I feel like that's going to be a much more important threat than these pirates. And so these pirates, even though they're the first villains to be introduced in the season, they're going to be kind of a side gig. Or maybe the big galactic conspiracy is going to be a side gig, and we'll never know until we get deeper into the season. And so, yeah, those are my... I'd be interested to see what I hope they do with... I hope they bring back Moff Gideon in this season, but I hope they don't make him a main part again. I hope he's just like kind of a side character, or maybe he just makes a cameo. I don't know. I just like Moff Gideon. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think it was an enjoyable pilot episode, but one of the weaker ones, but still good. So yeah, I like The Mandalorian, and I like fiction, and I will see you later. Like,